Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Hey, everybody. So we're talking about Dave Chappelle's council meeting appearance and his threat to put the kibosh on opening two businesses in Ohio. Senator Bernie Sanders wants to take the Build Back Better Act to the floor. The Miami Dolphins named their new head coach, and Sherri Sheppard is holding it down for Wendy Williams as the host of her daytime talk show. Will this be permanent? Or is it just temporary? Well, the business of being black are the political and trending highlights of the week. Let's get this party started. Woo! Please welcome my Friday co-host, the co-founder of the Anti-Racism Kentucky Coalition, Dr. OJ Oleka. Hi, Dr. Oleka.
Hey, Tammi Mack.
Activist and radio personality, Dominique DePrima. Hi, Dominique.
Go Rams.
Political analyst Ed Sanders and Ed, hi.
I'd go Rams.
And comedian and filmmaker Alicia Cooper.
Hey, go Commanders.
Unfortunately, they are gone. So let's start it off with Bernie Sanders. Senator Bernie Sanders expressed his frustration with the Democrats' failure to pass the Build Back Better Act and proposed to take components from the act and debate on the floor to see where it goes. So what are your thoughts on this? Dominique, I know you're a Sanders fan, as am I.
Well, yeah, and it is true. We've got to make really those Democrats who are not on board with the Biden agenda and all of the Republicans who are not willing to stand up for things like, universal pre-K. We have to make them defend their position. We have to let the American people see what's happening with full transparency so they can't just get away with obstructing everything, whether it's those far right-wing Democrats who pretend to be moderates, or whether it's all of the Republicans, every single Republican who will not get behind much of the agenda of Build Back Better, which directly benefits the American people at a time when many people are still hurting from this pandemic.
Ed.
I understand what Senator Sanders is saying, right? Ultimately, he's saying, we've got to find some wins going into November. There are a lot of elements to the plan. And, I think if he feels that if there are some victories on some certain key issues, that'll start to give Democrats a better message going into November. I would also say that it's an interesting play. I can't tell you how many times people watch C-SPAN, right? It's not the most watched network in the world, right? So it's really not that
only during the O.J. Simpson trial.
Only then, but so having a debate on the floor isn't something that Americans see. All of that gets digested and out on the media, and that's usually just sound bites. So query whether it has the intended impact with the population.
Well, I hear they're passing out free crack pipes. Maybe that's a win for the Democrats. I don't know.
Stop it, Tammi. You know that's not true.
Alicia.
Yeah, well, I was listening to Senator Sanders, and he said that the average worker today is making $40 a week less than they made 49 years ago. So something has to change. And those two dinos that we have that are in the way, they said 8 months ago, Kristen Sinema was worth $35,000. Today, she's worth over $1 million. So we're being sold out. The country's being sold out, and we've got to get these people out of office because the real people that need the money aren't getting it. They're sending billions over to the Ukraine. We need stuff to happen right here, right now. And Build Back Better needs to be supported by both parties, not just the Democrats.
Yeah. It behooves us to be bipartisan in every way, right, Dr. Oleka?
Well, if you're looking for bipartisanship on this idea, we actually agree, but for very different reasons. I would love for Mark Kelly in Arizona to have to vote on all these bills. I would love for Raphael Warnock in Georgia to have to vote for all these bills, and same thing with Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire. The thing is, this agenda is not popular with the American people. I know it's popular with Democrats. I know it's popular with liberals. But what you see is inflation going up. You see people concerned about supply chain. You see people concerned about money. This will not change with the Build Back Better agenda. What it would do is federalize a lot of the very things that people are complaining about the federal government doing. So yes, please, as your resident Republican on this show, I would love to have all of these vulnerable Democrats in these states, from Arizona to Georgia to New Hampshire to Nevada, even Colorado in some instances, voting on these bills so that we can take back the Senate and make Mitch McConnell the majority leader once again.
If these ideas aren't popular with the American people, then why do Republicans vote against a bipartisan infrastructure package and then take credit for it, Dr. RJ?
Well, with all due respect, a lot of Republicans, including Leader McConnell, did vote for it. Now, look, the party was
split on that. But the majority did not,
true.
And all of them are taking credit, and you know that's true. And the polling does not back up what you're saying about the popularity of these programs with the American people.
The party was split on that, which is true. But I think what you're finding is that, again, this is a tale of wanting too much versus what you can actually get. There's this misnomer out there on the left that Joe Biden was somehow elected for some FDR or Lyndon Baines Johnson-like mandate. That's not true. Republicans, if you recall, gained seats in the House in the 2020 elections and barely lost the Senate because of the ill-fated suggestions of the president with regard to Georgia. This is not a mandate to go far left. And sure, there are certain components that might be popular, but when you start to add up all the issues of the extra spending of the government, as Joe Manchin, who is a Democrat, even though Democrats hate him, pointed out, this is not something that people want to do. And so again, if you want to put these vulnerable senators on the clock in terms of their political career, I'm all for it.
All right, let's move on. Are you all for, I'm going to stay with you, Dr. Oleka. Are you all for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas having a statue? Many black senators, let me start by saying many black senators are pushing back on erecting a monument of Clarence Thomas, the nation's second black Supreme Court justice in Georgia. Clarence Thomas opposed affirmative action and critical aspects of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. He has also called on the court to overturn Roe versus Wade. And Democratic senators stated that it's not that we have a problem that he is a conservative or a Republican. We think he's a hypocrite and a traitor. He subverts the struggles of Black Americans. Should there be a monument of Thomas, despite the allegations against him pre-Supreme Court justice, his policies and his rulings?
Well, tell us how you really feel, senators in Georgia. We don't dislike him because of his politics. We dislike him because of his existence and his being, is basically what they're saying. I mean, look, let me make two very clear statements on this. In terms of in this country, in government and politics, Clarence Thomas is one of the most successful descendants of American slaves in our history. That's just a fact. When you look at politics and government, he is arguably the most successful. If you want to build a statue to him, fine, go ahead. But I think if you start to suggest that because of his politics, because of his views, that he does not have some type of weight within the history of the Black community, again, with regard to how successful he has been in politics and government, I think you're doing an incredible disservice to the diaspora of our people. And I think you're doing an incredible disservice to the diversity of thought within the Black community. And I would ask folks to tread lightly as they make that consideration.
I actually agree with you on that, Dr. Oleka, but I have a stronger stance here myself. I think maybe America ought to take a look at erecting statues, period. Like, I think the statue thing, we might want to lay low on the statue. It's not gone very well for us to take all this money and build statues only to tear them down centuries later. Dominique, I know you're ready to get in on this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, David Duke has had a big impact on the Black community. Should we erect a statue to him, Dr. Oleka? And
now, you know that's an unfair comparison.
No, it isn't. Not at all. Clarence Thomas, what they're saying is we don't dislike him for his politics. We dislike him for his character. Sexual harassment of Anita Hill is not his existence. It is his character. And character counts, especially when you are on the U.S. Supreme Court. That said, typically we don't erect statues for people, even if they're from the home state of Georgia, as Clarence Thomas, Justice Thomas is, until they're dead. And last time I checked, he was still living. To Tammy's point, I think that maybe we ought to like pause a century or two. Like you don't only have to be dead, you got to be dead at least 100 years before we put up a statue for you, unless you are in the NBA. That's what I'm thinking.
I don't know. We might have to rethink these NBA statues too.
True that.
Alicia.
Yeah, well, I would just like, I'm not a Clarence Thomas fan. I'm still upset that they replaced Thurgood Marshall with him. But I would like for Biden to put Anita Hill on the Supreme Court. She can walk by him every day and give him the side eye and put a pubic hair on his coat.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with everyone on the panel. I mean, when you put it in history, he is the second African American on the Supreme Court, and for that there is some measure of recognition that he is due. I look at it this way: when you see all the birds and the pigeons and they need somewhere to poop, they might as well have a Clarence Thomas statue.
Oh, y'all being real cruel today. Oh,
I like that, Ed. I like that,
who put
Ed.
the hot sauce in y'all tea today?
Yeah,
It is a remarkable thing to me that we are talking about one of the greatest legal minds from the conservative side this way, just because he's black and conservative. This is why we're doing it.
Because he's a sexual harasser, because he consistently take positions that are not in the service of the black community. And whether or not he's a great legal mind, that's your opinion.
Joe Biden was accused of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton had an improper relationship with an intern, and yet we don't hear people talking about these men that way. Nobody complains about their sex.
No, but OJ, if you're trying to evaluate him as a juror, he is as partisan as they come. And when you look at the activities of his wife and how she uses her time and money to advocate politically, you can tell that what he is doing is politically motivated on the court. He isn't looking at cases and evaluating them. So
What I'm doing is financially motivated. I'm going to commercial break. I will be right back on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Today, the Business of Being Black are our highlighting and trending topics of the week. Thursday, the Florida Supreme Court shot down Governor Ron DeSantis' push to revamp a 200-mile congressional district held by a black Democrat. Is DeSantis trying to dismantle the North Florida seat to make a redistricting map more friendly to Republicans here? I'll give it to you, Dr. Oleka.
Well, probably. But I mean, that's basically what you do in these situations, regardless of party. I mean, look, Illinois just did the same thing. There was a representative up there in Congress who voted to impeach President Trump, a Republican who Illinois folks would probably like. And they ripped apart his district anyway and made it impossible for him to run for re-election. New York State did the same thing. Florida did this. Plenty of states are doing this. This is what happens when you have legislatures who are in charge every 10 years when you have a new census. What's interesting here is that Ron DeSantis, as governor, went a step further than the Republican legislature did in the House with their map. So there seems to be an issue in between the party as opposed to opposite parties in this case.
Dominique.
Yeah, I think Dr. Oleka's right. Both parties do it when they can. But it's interesting when you talk about gerrymandering, it is Republicans that do it most frequently because they are in the minority, which is why they keep losing the popular vote. So they are trying to figure out how to retain power even when they are not being chosen by the majority of voters. And that's why gerrymandering is a go-to tool for Republicans. I also think that when you talk about DeSantis, you're talking about someone who has presidential aspirations and who polls pretty high should Donald Trump not be in a Republican lineup for 2024. So when you talk about him going a step further, Dr. Oleka, I think you always have to have an eye to the fact that he is the man who would be the 47th president of the United States.
Ed?
I agree with both. I thought it interesting that the Florida Supreme Court rushed him back. The appointees to that court have typically come from the past Republican governors, and so you would have thought that DeSantis would have had some measure of agreement with them. But what that tells me is how telling his or how drastic his map was in its effort to cut up the black vote in North Florida. So I think the right decision.
Alicia, you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, I just say everybody said what I would have said, but Republicans understand that they cannot win unless they cheat. And this is all that it's about, changing all the maps and gerrymandering. They know what they're doing. They cannot win legitimately. And this is just desperation on their part. And we all see through it.
Look,
Dr. Oleka is laughing at that. Go ahead.
Because this is a major problem that Democrats are starting to say all across their political spectrum, that when Republicans fairly win elections and when they make the maps based on the rules, that somehow it's cheating. Listen, for anybody who is unfamiliar with the Constitution, to win the American presidency, you do not have to win the popular vote. It is not actually recorded in any meaningful way outside of what the media reports. The Electoral College is how you win. That's how you win the presidency. States are a completely different matter. So when you say Republicans can't win, that's just simply untrue based on how the rules are made. Now, you can argue all day, should we change the rules? That's a different argument. But to say that Republicans win by cheating is simply untrue and creates this idea in people's minds that when Republicans win, somehow there was some problem with the elections, which is also untrue. I think it would be a lot better conversation if we were just honest and said that some people sometimes just don't like the ideas the Democrats have. That's the honest result.
No, I mean, in this one, we're talking about how the lines are drawn on districts, right? And the term gerrymandering, it could be used for good, it could be used for bad. I think when you look at maps that are drawn by Republicans, the intent of those maps is to disenfranchise or dilute communities of color's influence on policy by not allowing for representatives of communities to be elected. I think when you look at how maps are drawn through Democratic legislators and Democratic administrations, I think there is a great deal of effort to try to make it inclusive, make sure that state legislators and congressional delegations are inclusive of a diverse community. And that says a lot about the two parties. And that's really what's at core here.
Well, again, that's also not true. To put it in a different perspective, effectively what you're saying is that if you have a majority minority district, that's fine because it's good for Democrats. That's good politics and good policy for them. But when you have districts that are not majority minority, then Republicans can win them. And that all of a sudden is a subversion of democracy. Each state is very different. Each population is very different. The way that people vote is very different. So to make the assumption that because a state separated out votes in a particular way based on the culture of the state and the people who run that state in the legislature, and then if it doesn't end up the way that you want it, is somehow an attempt to subvert people by race, I think is a dishonest and disingenuous way.
OJ, you're just saying things. You're just speaking because you understand
the truth
of this country, and you absolutely understand that is how gerrymandering works. We just talked about Alabama on the show a couple of weeks ago, where you've got 7 congressional members in the state of Alabama, a 40% Democratic break in the state, but only one of the districts is represented by Democrats. Those maps are controlled and drawn by the Republicans in that state. So I mean, there is a definite effort to carve up, and on the partisan line, what we're saying is that communities of color represent and fall with the Democratic Party. And on the Republican side, what you're actually recognizing or what you're stating is that that is white. That is the Republican Party represents white communities, particularly in the South. But communities of color, because they tend to vote Democratic, are not being represented because of how Republicans draw lines.
So let's move on here. Judiciary Committee senators are debating over the tone of questioning directed at judicial nominees of color. Take a look at what Democratic Senator Alex Padilla said about the criticism of judicial nominee Andre Mathis by Senator Marsha Blackburn.
Eve of his hearing, it has been made public that he has a rap sheet with a laundry list of citations, including multiple failures to appear in court. In Tennessee, we expect our judges to respect the law, not disregard it. If Mr. Mathis thought he was above the law before, imagine how he'll conduct himself if he's confirmed as a federal judge. I cannot, in good conscience, support the nomination. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is she out of line, or, is this a fact that she has to bring up? Should he be or have to go ahead and follow the rules like the rest of us? And would it be worse if he were in a higher position? Dominique?
Well, I mean, of course, if you're a judge, you're supposed to follow the rules. The problem is that we don't have the same rules if you're Black or brown or progressive that we have for Republicans. You see what I'm saying? Why is it that someone can get on the Supreme Court after sexually harassing someone, after drinking so much beer that they can't even remember how much beer they drank, and can't remember people that are coming forward to accuse them of sexual assault? Meanwhile, we don't even, and that's not a problem. They're on the Supreme Court. We're on to the next thing. When it comes to anyone Black or brown, we're going to see a much different framing, and we're going to see a much different line of questioning. And the things that that someone with white privilege can get away with and be on a court is not the same for white folks. It's all good, and so that, I believe, is the problem. It's not that whether we follow the rules or whether we don't follow the rules, it's does Black America and white America get to apply the same rules in the same situations?
Yeah. Alicia?
Yeah, and I mean, the way she was talking about it, you would have thought she was talking about El Chapo. When I looked up the man, he had some misdemeanors and some traffic violations, and it wasn't any major violations. I mean, yes, he should have shown up for court. This is true, but I mean, they make it sound like this. I can't support that. I was like, you are doing the most, ma'am. And like,
yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Alicia. I was like, well, what did he have to go to court for? Did he refuse to pay child support? Did he beat his baby mama? What we doing here?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I agree with my colleagues on this. And I'll just say that if Republicans took this line of questioning to all of our elected officials, we would have had no 43rd president of the United States, because George W. Bush had a rap sheet. In fact, we would have no ticket at all, because Cheney also had a rap sheet. I believe that people deserve second chances, and that should apply equally across political party, race, gender, and everything else.
She made a mountain out of a molehill. I mean, it was 3 speeding tickets that he didn't appear for. One of them, I think he was going 5 miles over the speed limit. And to term it as a rap sheet, like, come on. It really didn't have any play. You would have hoped that he would have paid his tickets, but still, they didn't deserve that term.
And her hairstyle should be illegal. That should be a violation.
I actually like the hair. I love.
No, you don't. You do not, Tammy.
No, I do. I actually did like the hair. But as women, we shouldn't be talking about her hair, Dominique.
Yes, we should.
We should be focusing on her hair. We should focus on her policy, her politics, and her position. Okay,
you're right.
Her perm.
I stand corrected, Tammy Mack.
Let's take a quick break. Come right back on Business of Being Black with Tammy Mack. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammy Mack. I'm Tammy Mack. Hello. Please welcome my co-host for today, Dominique DePrima. Dr. O.J. Oleka is here. Ed Sanders in the building, or in his own home, or wherever. And then Alicia Cooper. We're still feeling residual effects from this pandemic, that's for sure. The Miami Dolphins introduced Mike McDaniel as their new minority-endorsed head coach on Thursday. McDaniel addressed the media about his racial background. Let's take a look.
Human being. And my dad's Black. So whatever you want to call it, I don't have any real experience with racism, because, I think you identify me as something close to, I don't know.
He don't know what the hell he is. He has no clue. I don't know.
Look, Tammy,
Alicia, you were ready for it? Go for it.
Welcome to Passing People's History Month.
Oh my God.
Because this dude was like, wait a minute, I'm biracial? Who told y'all? He almost made it out of this life white. And the NFL tripped him up at the finish line. This poor man didn't know what to do. He was like, well, my dad's Black, but I'm a human. Like, Black people are not human. I was like, if y'all let him keep talking, he is going to dig himself a hole he's not going to be able to get out of. This man, I was just looking at him like, sir, he done heard all the N-word jokes and didn't say a word on our behalf. he just he just sat there passing and giggling. And then
He is straight out of the movie Imitation of Life, right?
Right. And if they do that remake, they need to make the protagonist a male this time, because he is Imitation of Life, the male version. So yeah, now all eyes are going to be on his coaching this season, because we got to find out if he was really the right hire or just the diversity hire. He didn't even know he was diverse. So this is going to be real interesting.
He's like, I thought you just chose me because I was good. I had to check a box. I had no idea I had to check a box. There are boxes you check. Dr. Oleka.
I am actually very curious to see how he does this year as a coach. I mean, the NFL is a predominantly black league. He just introduced himself the way that he did. We all heard it. I just wonder how his team is going to react to him now. The fact that he does not embrace the very blackness that he was clearly hired for. Because again, for folks who aren't following the NFL, Brian Flores, the former coach of the Miami Dolphins, who was a black man, was let go after winning 7 games in a row. He's currently suing the NFL for that very issue of discrimination. So now the Dolphins hire this man clearly because they saw enough black in him to make him the coach and not be responsible for that issue. So I wonder how.
Are you referring to the one drop of black rule?
I mean,
they saw enough black in him, huh?
Alicia made all the other jokes, so I will refrain.
Like, I'm gonna stay back.
I mean, he's gonna have a real problem, I think, with his team potentially with how he handled himself just now.
Interesting, Ed.
I agree with OJ wholeheartedly on this one, and I think from a head coach perspective, that is the one question that was coming your way, and to be so ill prepared to answer it says a lot about his preparation, and hopefully, it says a lot about his preparation in terms of coaching. I think the answer, he's already lost his locker room. I just don't see how he steps into that locker room and has any command presence. So I think the Dolphins are actually making Flores' case because they're putting a minority coach in to lose. And I'm pretty sure that the Dolphins are going to get off to a very poor start next season. And, you'll see a minority coach presiding over it.
Not only has he lost the locker room, he's lost his white privilege. Next week, he'll start getting pulled out of his car, Billy Club.
He's gonna start getting parking citations now.
Oh, and citations. He's gonna be. Oh my goodness, everything. It's gonna be a whole new life for him at this point.
But I am a bit confused, and I understand that we are talking about racism in the NFL pretty heavily in the media right now because of Brian Flores' discrimination lawsuit specifically. But no other coach at a press conference has been asked what nationality or ethnicity that he is. So I do find the question a little off kilter, even though this is what we're talking about right now. For me, I just don't think that question should be asked. Why am I feeling this way, Dominique? What is it?
I think you're feeling this way because to be a black coach in the NFL, you have to go through so much more, which is part of why the playing field isn't level. But I agree with Ed. You have to be prepared for that. Even no matter who you are, if you identify as white, if you identify as Latino, if you identify as black, we have to know the difference between race, ethnicity, nationality, and culture. If you don't know who you are, how can you coach me on what I'm supposed to be doing? I think that's a big problem for him. I think it's a teachable moment for America that we have to have a better understanding of what we mean when we say race, ethnicity, nationality, culture. They all play a role. And, the other thing is when you see this spectacle, when the NFL knows it's under the spotlight, look, he got enough drops to be lynched from a tree. So the point is, are they saying this is the type of black person you have to be to succeed in the NFL? Like one who barely even identifies with blackness, with our movement, with our social justice and elevation of African Americans?
Yeah, because he said he's never experienced racism.
Yeah, well, good for him. But 12 generations of our people still worked without pay. We're due reparation. It's time for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's time for the NFL to stop just stenciling stuff on helmets and get to real inclusion, equity, and diversity. And if clueless is what you have to be to get a top job as a Black person in the NFL, that in itself is a problem.
I want to say shout out to Mike Tomlin of my Steelers, the only Black coach in the NFL prior to this individual, one of the winningest coaches.
I don't even know that you can say prior, because this individual clearly does not identify as Black. No. And I think we should get rid of the boxes. I know, Dominique, you said that's probably not the best idea because of how monies are allocated and funds and things of that nature. But, you know, if we can just identify now, why can't we just let everybody identify what they are?
We cannot let him check the Black coach box. He cannot check that box. We still only have one. He's not it.
Alicia, she said passing People's History Month. I'm still laughing.
Passing People's History Month. The Brooklyn Nets keeping it on sports for you fellas. And the Philadelphia 76ers agreed to trade James Harden and Paul Millsap for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond, as well as 2 first-round draft picks to Brooklyn. Ed, who are the biggest contenders between the two?
Question. If you ask me, I still think Milwaukee's coming out the East, but it breathes some life into those 2 franchises. Both of them have been saddled with turmoil around, their superstars, whether Harden and his disenchantment with Kyrie Irving and, the lack of the vaccination piece, or Ben Simmons and the fallout there in Philly. Both of them think, the addition of Harden in Philly, the addition of Simmons, this is going to be an interesting run from February to now. The only regret here is I'm hoping that the Lakers are able to turn it on and meet one of them in the finals, but we'll see.
Dr. Lakers laughing. Look, I started laughing too. I'm like, didn't the Lakers just lose the other night to bench riders? But okay, I digress. Go ahead, OJ.
They did lose the bench riders, but I think the Nets probably went out on this. I mean, what the Sixers get, they get James Harden, which their general manager Daryl Morey has wanted. They had a great relationship when he was in Houston. Joel Embiid and James Harden will be an interesting mix. But what they've got over in Brooklyn, they've got Kevin Durant, who arguably, when healthy, is the best player in the NBA right now. They've got a Kyrie Irving who can hit big shots, who can get his own shot. They've got a lot of shooters around those folks in Patty Mills and now Seth Curry. But they also now will get Ben Simmons, who is, if he's playing well, is one of the best defenders in the league, is one of the best passers in the league, and gives them a new dimension to their offense. But I am with Ed on this. I still think the Bucks come out of the East. I think they're a proven team. They all know their roles. Nobody can stop Giannis, and they've got some big bucket makers as well.
Well, I'm not going to leave the ladies out of this conversation. Dominique, your thoughts?
Well, I don't claim to be an expert on this, but y'all going to leave my Lakers alone. And I am of the unpopular opinion that I'm happy we passed the deadline without trading Russell Westbrook, because Russell Westbrook is from LA. He does a lot for the community, and I think he's going to turn it around.
On that thought, let me turn it around to some commercials, and we'll be right back on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Today, the Business of Being Black are our highlighting and trending topics. Please welcome Dr. O.J. Oleka. Please welcome Ed Sanders. We've got Dominique DePrima here to talk it up, and Alicia Cooper to yuck it up with us. Yuck. The rumor mill is abuzz with claims that Sheppard will replace Wendy Williams as the host of her daytime TV show. And Williams is reportedly unhappy with the decision. What are your thoughts about these rumors? And if the rumors are true, would Sheppard be a good replacement for Wendy Williams? I so badly want to get in on this conversation. Alicia, we'll give it to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sherry's been having the highest ratings of all the guest hosts so far. And I don't know why Wendy would have a problem with it. She needs to be worried about them locking her out of her accounts down at the Wells Fargo. instead of worrying about what Sherry's doing. You want the show to do well. And I mean, I've enjoyed some of the other hosts that they've had so far, Kim Whitley and Finesse Mitchell and a few others. They've been doing a good job, but I don't think they're going to make the decision or the announcement until September. I think Wendy has to get out of her contract. You know, they have a contract with Wendy for this season. And once that runs out, they'll be able to officially make a determination. But I think they'll just deal with guest hosts until September when the new season starts. But I think she's a good choice.
Dominique?
Well, you know, Sherri Sheppard is a friend. I think she's tremendously talented. I think she is going to be the permanent guest host. The other part of that rumor is that should it become clear that Wendy Williams is not able to come back, they will rename the show, the Sherri Sheppard Show. I do hope that Wendy gets better, fully recovers, keeps track of her money, and does not become the next Britney Spears on some kind of guardianship, as is being reported now. I wish Wendy Williams the very best. At the same time, I'm elated. I think Sherri Sheppard is great for the job, and I'm not going to get mixed up in this pitting Black women against each other. I'm sure Wendy Williams is fine with it, and Sherri Sheppard is just really shining right now.
Yeah, she is shining, and she also has a television show that's about to air, Black Don't Crack, which is in production with Viola Davis, where she's #1 on the call sheet. She's an executive producer of the television series, so I'm sure that's going to do well too. It definitely seems to be Sherry's season, no doubt. Ed?
I think I agree with both Alicia and Dominique. It's you know, this whole situation seems unfortunate, but I think they're making the best of it. Sherry seems to be doing well. I hope the best for her. Yeah, that's all I can really say on that one.
It's like, I don't know, Lakers.
Lakers? They should have the halftime show during the Laker games.
OJ.
I put a show during the whole Laker game, the way that they're doing right now. But that's a different topic. What I would say is that it's all about the ratings, as Alicia said. I think if this guest host is doing the best, then you have this guest host. That would be the case regardless of who it was or the personality. So it seems like they're making the best decision for the show.
Yeah. Sherri Sheppard, outside of those things that Alicia has said about Sherri Sheppard, there has been no one who has commanded that audience like Sherry has. And she's really gone in to solidify herself as a bona fide host. I mean, her work on that show is just impeccable. It's amazing. And I've talked about it on my radio show as well. I think if bitch, I'm ready, bitch, let's go was a person, that person would be Sherri Sheppard, because she sat in that slot like it belonged to her with all confidence. And she brought every piece of her talent together, her acting mixed in with her comedy, and just killed and slayed that show. So if the W becomes an S, I think it's well deserved. If the W stays a W, I think there will be fans all over this nation that are happy that Wendy has returned to her throne as host. Let's talk about these rumors. Snoop Dogg. Let's talk about Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg, who rose to fame on Death Row Records, just bought the label, y'all. He said, "I'm thrilled and appreciative of the opportunity to acquire the iconic and culturally significant Death Row Records brand. It feels good to have ownership of the label I was part of at the beginning of my career, and as one of the founding members, this is an extremely meaningful moment for me." So let's talk about this full circle moment for Snoop Dizzy. Anyone?
Well, go ahead, Ed.
I mean, look, I think he's right? You know what I mean? It feels good to see Death Row Records in Snoop's hand. You know, from a business proposition, if I'm sure you could reinvigorate it. As I was thinking about it, as I heard it, I was wondering, I don't know the state of the record label. You know, I know there was a lot of turmoil towards the end and a number of different lawsuits, and I hope in the end game, Snoop is buying something that can be built upon. But to see Death Row in Snoop's hand is a great addition to his portfolio.
Yeah, I think it's like more ownership of the name Death Row Records than anything else, right?
You know what? I'm not sure if he gets the catalog. That's a huge win.
Right.
But the thing about Snoop is that it is a boss move for sure, because it is a marketing genius move. He's unveiling it right before the Super Bowl with this iconic, press coverage and his posts on social media. Also, he's releasing his next album, which is called Snoop is Back on Death Row Records, or something to that similar.
Back on Death Row. Yeah. BODR. Back on Death Row.
Back on Death Row. So, that in itself is huge. And look at worldwide publicity from him buying this is going to rocket fuel his next release. And I think we don't know who he's got signed or up his sleeve to sign to the label. So the future of Death Row is certainly bright. And I love the fact of Snoop stepping into this management role and really leveling up at this point in his career.
Yeah, and we can't leave out that he has included NFTs. So he really is being progressive and moving towards the future when it comes to currency and making this money. He is selling a lot of NFTs of his Death Row record singles as well. Alicia.
Yeah, I mean, everybody said what I would have said. I'm just happy for him. It's a full circle moment, and can't wait to see what the future holds. From when I first heard the story, I just had one word. I was like, Snoop.
When I first moved to Los Angeles in my first year, I did a Snoop Dogg music video in Diamond Bar, California. And I had on the tightest leather pants back in my finer days. I had on the tightest leather pants, and I was going down to drop it like it's hot, and my pants split right down the middle. And I thought, oh, wow, what a first time experience in a music video in Los Angeles, California. This cannot be a clear indication of what my career will be in this town. It cannot be. Needless to say, that was my one and only, or rather my last video that I'd ever been in. Not been in another one since. Let's move on to some more politics. Louisiana Senate candidate Gary Chambers set fire to a Confederate flag while talking about the history of racial oppression in the South. Watch this.
15 Black Americans are deprived of the right to vote. 1 in 9 Black Americans do not have health insurance. 1 in 3 Black children live in poverty. It's time to burn what remains of the Confederacy down.
I mean, this brother's bad. He's probably not going to win this go around, but he's going to eventually be in somebody's seat. He's smoking weed in his campaign ads. He's burning rebel flags. Do you think these rebellious actions will result in a win for him, Dominique?
Well, it almost doesn't matter if it results in a win, as you said, because it's about, certainly branding. It's about putting himself right dead center in the progressive conversation. Honestly, we know that you're going to have to do more than burn an enemy flag to get rid of the vestiges of the Confederacy, which is baked into the systemic racism in almost every level of our society. But I think he's placed himself front and center. We're talking about it now. And so I think that's, a great step for him. But it's also important for us to look at these issues.
I think more people talked about him smoking the weed in the campaign than this rebel flag. He got publicity all over. We're going to talk about it even more when we come back on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Hi there, I'm Tammi Mack, and my co-hosts are Dr. O.J. Oleka, Ed Sanders, Dominique DePrima, and Alicia Cooper. Thank you all for being here. Let's finish this conversation on Gary Chambers. Dominique left off talking about how, of course, his campaigning certainly helps his branding and imaging for future runs. What do you feel, Dr. OJ?
Well, he's probably going to lose the election. He just in the wrong party, in the wrong state. That's typically just how these things go. But I do think there is something interesting to this campaign. He's running unafraid, which is always important, I think, for folks running for office to do.
Well, that's what Donald Trump did, right?
That's exactly what Trump did.
He ran unafraid. And I think Gary Chambers is taking a little bit out of the Donald Trump playbook on the opposite side.
Which I think there could be some benefit to that. And we'll see where this ends up in terms of his vote total. But I think what could happen next is going to be the most important. Should he lose, what does he now go and do with his celebrity? Because if he runs again and loses, then he'll just be tagged as a loser, and the message he's trying to get across won't be as effective for who he's trying to reach. So if he wins, then obviously he wins. But if he loses, then I think he can take that brand, start an organization, perhaps start a television show, be picked up by MSNBC or someone else who's looking to give his perspective an outlet.
You telling him, Dr. Oleka, that if he loses, just throw in the towel and be an entertainer on MSNBC? I'm thinking our president of the United States currently has lost how many times and is now the president of the United States? How many times has Erica Kane lost the Emmy, and then she wins after her, I don't know, 30th try? Come on, this is a nation of redemption. A nation of try and try again until you succeed. We are not going to relegate this man to the television station and the commentary of MSNBC for sure now, Dr.
Make more money.
Ed.
I think it's refreshing. I think when you talk to people who have sort of tuned out of politics, I think a lot of it has to do with this sense of how politicians are insincere, how, what they're really just trying to be politically correct. And when you talk about being brave enough to just be yourself and advocate for what you want, then there's a refreshing piece to that, right? I think years ago, MTV put forward Rock the Vote or whoever did that, and that was refreshing. It was new. It was there was a lot of freshness to it, and that brought voters to the pool. Someone like him can bring people to voting, and for that you got to be happy about it. I think I want to hear where he is on other issues, right? If this is this is sort of what we saw on the clip is as far as it goes. That's one thing, but I think his opinions can matter, and I think his ability to capture the voice of populations that aren't engaged in the voting bloc can be key. Now, to OJ's point, whether they win or not, that's another story. But candidates like him have a place in politics.
Yeah, and I definitely want to say Gary Chambers has been on Business of Being Black before, but I follow him on Instagram, and I've been following him since before he became extremely popular with the viral clip of him calling out a city council member who was shopping in the middle of them trying to decide whether the Robert E. Lee statue should stay or go, or whether that should be the name of the school. So he is highly invested in the state of Louisiana, and particularly his city. And this is not his first go around. He's ran before and lost twice. So this would be his third loss if he loses. But he is definitely gaining momentum and gaining traction in the political world. And he is a disruptor. And I think that's what we need right now. We need disruptors in politics. Alicia?
Yeah, I like Gary. If Stay Ready, so you don't have to get ready was a person, it's Gary Chambers. This man is always ready. And I love the way he thinks. And it's a win for him regardless. If you didn't already know who he is, you know who he is now. And Dr. OJ was saying he could go on entertainment. I wouldn't want him on MSNBC. I'd like to see him over there with Snoop so they can blaze up together and get some stuff done. But I'm a Gary fan, and to me, he's going to do big things. He hasn't even scratched the surface of where he's going, because he's just got it. He's got it, and he's engaging. He's smart. He's committed. He's passionate. So he might not get it this time, but I think he'll eventually get it.
And he is one of the ones that honestly cares about the people. So when you talk, Ed, about, I don't know how far his politics go, is if this is it, then he's probably not going to scratch the surface. His politics go way beyond burning the rebel flag. His politics go way beyond smoking marijuana in his campaign ads. He really does talk about the issues at hand, and he's using these political tricks, if you will, or gimmicks, if you will, to bring attention to the issues that he really believes matters. So I think it's a wise decision. Let's talk about a celebrity who is involved in politics right now for the moment. An affordable housing development plan in Yellow Springs, Ohio was tossed after Dave Chappelle added his voice to others who opposed it. Take a look at the clip, y'all.
Village Council will be afraid of litigation from a $24 million a year company while they X out a $65 million a year company. I cannot believe you would make me audition for you. You look like clowns. I am not bluffing. I will take it all off the table. That's all. Thank you.
Well, I'm not bluffing. I will take it all off the table. Ed, let's go. Oh, I do want to say this before we get started. The video, Dave Chappelle's people spoke out. His reps assured the public that the video is far from accurate in terms of what people are perceiving from the video. Dave's rep said Dave Chappelle didn't kill affordable housing. Concerned residents and a responding village council killed a half-baked plan, which never actually offered affordable housing. Chappelle was heard in the video saying it looked like clowns. I'm not bluffing. I will take it all off the table. He was referring to two businesses he was has put money into. I think $65 million for a restaurant and a comedy club. Ed, go ahead.
To unpack with this, I mean, I look at it first as one, I'm applauding Dave for his business sense, right? He's moving into different realms of business, but I'm also seeing, the frustration of sort of the state of where his public affairs are, right? The fallout from Netflix really opened him up to this sort of criticism. And you could see his frustration coming out in that video, whether the video is construed properly or not. You just see how the fallout of his current public affairs state is playing out in his business world.
Yeah, Alicia.
Yeah, and I can't really look. I'm trying to work down at the comedy club, so I can't really say anything wrong. But but I was reading up on it because I was like, this headline doesn't sound anything like the Dave we know. It just sounded like a salacious clickbait, and it worked because everybody was like, "Dave, stopping poor people."
Well, we're gonna stop right now because we gotta go. The show is over. TGIF is next, and thank you for being here at the Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul.